Edward had heard the whispers for years. When he lived in Brooklyn, it was only on rare occasions, like when he as a child climbed that tall tree in Central Park, or when he almost drowned in the Hudson River, trying to save his despaired mother. The whispers became more common as he moved to New Orleans, but still rare enough to be ignored. Now as he walks the halls of Dersето, he knows what is calling him. He doesn't want to admit it, but the dark young in the conservatory is telling him to sacrifice the Gabri Sankor. There are many ways to cross a threshold. The easiest one is being invited. A door swung open, leading you inside. Another is sleep, hypnosis, or even sudden fright. There are those who fold spaces that challenge Mobius, or jump through angles that defy Euclid. If you learn to properly use your talisman, you could go anywhere. You wouldn't even need to rely on the fluttering wings of the shrieking Biakis. Life is a stage play performed to no one, applauded by no one, and wanted by no one. A story already written, meant to play out in one way only. I wrote my book in order to explain that there might be more to life, that free will isn't truly free unless it moves against the expected. In retrospect, I think my ambition was hubristic. Yermi had a much more humble suggestion. What if we all just went home? As the world moved into the new decade, America was spiraling into a maelstrom of debt, drought, and death. It was called the Great Depression, and ruined many families. It was a fitting name, for poverty also breeds madness through desperation. Yermi was of course no such victim, for he already witnessed the darkness within. He knew the shadow that stood on his threshold very well. It wasn't new. It was something. Bull worship is common throughout history. For Christians, this can be seen in Exodus when the Israelites turned to worship a golden calf in Moses' absence. This passage shows the people falling back to the worship witnessed in Egypt, known as the Hapis bull. Another famous example is the Minoans on the island of Crete. Their worship of the bull gave rise to the myth of the Minotaurus, the half-man, half-bull monster that reigned the labyrinth. But for this particular case, I think I should tell you about the deity Astarte that brought the Taurus constellation to life to attack Gilgamesh. Even for a mythical hero, this celestial bull would prove difficult to defeat. Only by distracting the bull with a golden sail was Gilgamesh able to pierce an eye with the spear, which bled the bull to death. Asleep, with an anesthetized mind, Yermi filtered these words from Derseto's gangrenous ground. Ever their praises, and abundance to the black goat of the woods. Hear us, mother, and take pity on us. Accept our sacrifice, and judge our worth. Iya, Shubnigrath. Iya, Shubnigrath. The black goat of the woods with 1,000 young. The sign resembles a blessing, save that the first and little fingers are both folded beneath the thumb, whilst the second and third fingers are held up. This dark blessing is said to protect against evil, much like the sign of the horns, which is quite similar, but has a reverse schema. The truth is that the dark blessing is a sign of submission, a complete capitulation to our lesser selves. The sign only protects from evil in the sense that you become a part of it. What did you expect from them? You created too much. There wasn't any room to breathe. Your reification rendered all possible worlds void. You took everything they could imagine and constrained it into something that you didn't even care about. Or maybe you did. Perhaps you cared the most of all. Maybe you tried to save them from themselves, and that is why you had to die. What can be said about Jacob van Ostad without evoking contempt or apologia? The first piece of information is the obvious. He is not the explorer Jeremy idolized in his youth, but the figment of his imagination. If you want biographical facts, I am not the one to answer such questions. In the case of Jeremy, he is a guardian of imagination, or rather a persona appointed the role of containing a self-sabotaging mania. However useful Jacob once was, his loyalty to Jeremy has slowly been replaced by fanaticism. Like a firekeeper who has for decades been burnt by his own sacred flames, now does what he imagines the fire wants. Jeremy has lost all control over Jacob and suffers greatly because of him, but is admittedly also still invigorated by his labor. In the plainest of words, Jacob keeps Jeremy sick so he can remain Jeremy. The lone and the lost walk a land of fear. When there is nothing you recognize, or no one to trust, you prepare for the worst. Something is coming, and you best be ready. Take the gun in the parlor. Give them hell. The Hardwood curse is what they call it. There wasn't much of a vocabulary for mental illnesses back in the days. There are hardly enough now. The Hardwoods carry a troubling chemical imbalance in their brain, which they have managed to pass down through generations. As they grow old, they are overtaken by overwhelming melancholy that unavoidably leads to suicide. Oh, you want the real story? Well, who can say? It was written that way. New Orleans lies southwest of Dersето, along the great Mississippi River. Its old town, the French Quarter, or the Vieux Carré, is home of the proud and often rich Creoles. Wrapped around this center, you will find a large and eclectic city full of people, including the most mundane dock workers, reckless gangsters, jazz-crazed flappers, and of course, the mysterious voodoo people. At night, you can stand on the lakeside of Derseto and watch New Orleans glow like embers on the horizon. Derseto stands on a breeding ground for the grotesque, a temple devoted to rebellious growth, the most ugly and cancerous side of nature. You may be able to shield your psyche for a while, but rest assured your soul will come to pray to that hideous god in time. That is the story of every man and woman who gather around that ancient arbor. They all croak, bark, and bleat, because their own bodies are afraid and they wish to repel the evil those words conjure. Iya! Iya! Instead of that blasphemous name, they gossip in hushed whispers the name of Derseto, Astarte, and the Black Goat of the Woods. What a terrible thing to recognize that your betterment was an illusion. That you are so infatuated by the virtue of struggling that despite all your hard work, you made no real efforts to ever become well. Or that the treatment becomes such an obsession that instead of letting your wounds heal over time, you tear at the flesh in the hope that it will heal better and faster. If only it would bleed in the way you wanted. Do we ever become well? What do you think, Dr. Gray? The artist spent a lot of time boating on the vast lake Pontchartrain. Poetry, painting, photography, everything seemed to become better by the shimmering water and the opalescent sky. One night, as the sailors returned to Derseto, they found a masquerade ball taking place. It must have been Perosi and Nora who invited their friends from the theater. The sailors quickly fashioned masks out of plaster of Paris and joined the festivities. They enjoyed themselves for hours before realizing time was not passing. Nor could they find their friends. As they began to worry, they demanded that the guests unmasked. But they could not, because they were not wearing any masks.